We'll get started. Apologize for the slight delay. We had technical challenges we worked through, but certainly going to provide great content that hopefully will help you kind of work through your decision to potentially become a franchise owner over time. And so we'll obviously circulate this to those who are not able to attend in the form of a recording and a link. So with that being said, really, as we jump into this webinar, we want to make sure we're addressing all the items. And as a business owner myself, I really have these questions that I was asking myself if I was interested in becoming a business owner. And so ultimately, why be a business owner? We hope to address that on this call, as well as what industry makes sense. If we have a business opportunity, it could be in many different industries. We want to make sure that the one we're in makes sense. And then how do we know who's successful in the industry over time? And want to make sure that we are building those team members. And then what does Signal do to support and differentiate in that particular industry, or any organization would? And then how do we get started in the industry, which is usually the key question going forward. And so as we work through that, the first question is, why be a business owner? And obviously, this is a little bit about me. I started this organization 17 plus years ago, nearly 18 years ago. And my first career was with Black & Decker, a multinational organization selling a DeWalt power tools brand, and understood the power of branding. And then shortly thereafter, I had worked at a technical company where they had launched essentially an organization that became what is now a QR code. And I understood the power of technology and how that changed the world. And then I went to a local company here in Omaha that was selling franchises for a 5-year period of time, and sold about 280 of those. And recognized that franchising is the industry I need to be in. So I built on branding, I built on technology, and then I understood franchising. And then that gave me the opportunity to begin this organization in 2007. And so really have been running ever since. And where did we go from there? Is I really knew that franchising was something that I was interested in and wanted to do as an individual. And so franchisors are built on very stable, consistent industries, but also need to be differentiated and accelerated through local ownership and ultimately technology. And so that's why security ultimately made sense to me. And we'll talk through some of those elements. But we have since become the #1 franchise in security services, and then one of the third fastest growing franchise concept. And that's out of 6,000 concepts in America. We're the third fastest ranked this last year. So a lot of things are driving that going forward. And so we really want to look at what is the global outlook of security. And as you can see, the projected global opportunity, and we do operate in Canada, UK, Germany, Australia, and so we're certainly a global brand in 49 states in the US, but it's a $389 billion industry. And your US population is 1.2 million private security officers, and there's 708 million law enforcement officers. So if you really think about it, 1/3% of the population works in private security. As you look at that 1.2, or about 0.5% of the US population. And then clearly you can see the growth here domestically, $80 billion in growth or in revenue in 2021. It's 116 billion. And so we're in growing industries, especially as we kind of consider where the market is at now. There's a element of, recession that we're in now, but security continues to grow throughout because ultimately people want to be protected, right? They want to make sure that their assets and circumstances are secure. And so then ultimately, as I continue to walk through that, what is our goal and our objective? So who are we? And we are Signal is globally recognized brand with a goal to be the world's largest security provider by revolutionizing the industry through its unique ownership strategy of local ownership. And so we really focus on two things. One, local owners, franchisees in the lots, which I'll talk about here in a little bit, and then leveraging technology. We have our own proprietary software that we operate and that is a way to differentiate us in the local marketplace. And clearly it's resonating and working as we'll talk about. And so as I had mentioned, kind of where are we geographically? So in the United States, we have 1,476 lots that are sold, representing about 164 franchise owners. And so the question might be, how do you have that many lots and this many owners? And it really comes down to the owners are having early success, and so they continue to expand in their current markets geographically where they're at, and we'll break that down a little bit further. As I mentioned before, we're in Canada. We have 51 lots sold in Canada, and then we're in the UK and Germany. Specifically, Germany is just launching, started their first contract May 1st. Their next contract starts June 1st. And then we've been in Australia for about 9 years globally as well. And so we continue to expand globally to achieve our goal, but there's a lot of opportunity left from here. And so then what are we here to essentially do? And we're here to provide peace of mind. And that purpose statement is really a global objective. And, as I was looking at enduring organizations over time, I recognized they represent a state of mind. And whether it is Harley Davidson that owns freedom, or Disney that owns fun, or Coca-Cola that owns happiness, even though their portfolio of products evolves, in our case, that's peace of mind. And so our purpose statement starts as we're, that's really collectively all of us, from franchise owners to employees to ourselves here at the home office. Here is right now. What are we doing at this moment? Not what did we do in the past, but what are we ultimately doing in the present? And not even what are we intending to do in the future, but what can we do in this absolute moment to provide that's proactive, right? The security industry is fraught with people that are very reactive. We want to be proactive, and that's to provide, and that's a differentiator for our services. And what are we providing? Peace of mind. We know that each and every community and market has a different challenge, and ultimately, we want to identify what that is and then address it accordingly. And then what can they do from there? They can pursue their passion in life, right? Whatever that might be. If they're at a community that is in a housing environment, they can go back to spending time with their families. If it's at a work scenario, they can obviously go back to doing their work because our services are provided in that marketplace. And then what's the next stage? We want to recruit to our core values, right? We know that passion is critical. We drive with passion in everything because passion connects people to purpose. And then, of course, that is a key differentiator, right? The people that I meet as franchise owners that are successful are the ones that are passionate about security, providing peace of mind in their communities, and business ownership. And then honesty and integrity. We live in integrity and honesty because without it, our company and our brand are hollow. Clearly, our industry is unfortunately full of people that do not do what they promise. They're either not showing up, providing security services as contracted, or they're not able to directly address those concerns, which foster poor relationships, which is our next core value. We build relationships because healthy success can only be created with mutual respect for others. And so we holistically as an organization build respectful relationships with counterparts in the franchise industry, but certainly our clients. And then in those relationships, we serve. Serving is our fourth core value. We serve our communities without hesitation because serving is the active ingredient in service. And it's that ultimate proactive responsiveness that makes a huge difference because when we have a security concern, we want those things addressed as quickly as possible so that we can go back to having peace of mind. And then finally, our fifth core value is learning. We learn something every day by holding an open-minded approach to everything we do. As I studied this industry and first joined it, I recognized that many of the same security approaches they were taking 40 years ago are prevalent in our competitors. And so we are evolving with technology and approaches that are evolving as the world changes. And so we want to continue to build and maintain that over time. And so who is successful in the industry? We really see a portfolio of personalities in there that we want to see be successful. And there's really two personality types. One is the ambitious. We know that the person that's ambitious in that marketplace is going to be much more successful than those who are waiting for things to happen to them. And so we're looking for ambitious franchise owners. We're looking for ambitious clients. We're looking for ambitious employees. And likewise, those that are fully invested. They're invested in their own success. This isn't something that passively you wait for the world to happen and hopefully you benefit from that. We want ambitious and fully invested owners, clients, and employees because we know that is how the peace of mind is ultimately affected in those marketplaces. And so here are some profile of franchisees that we have across the board, and I'm going to break these down a little bit further. But these are current owners that come from different personas, and I'll speak to each of them as we kind of progress through their personality types, and you may align with some of those personalities and backgrounds specifically. The first one is a rebranded security company, and this is Bill Kotowski. He is a franchise owner in Pennsylvania that had a security business for about 20 years in Allentown, and they initially had about $1.5 million in revenue. I think they'll pass 10 million in revenue this year after 4 or 5 years. They actually launched in COVID, literally March or April 1st of 2020. And as a result, moved their contracts over, and now they've expanded to the majority of Pennsylvania. They're in Pittsburgh and the Philadelphia area as well recently. Keep adding clients in multiple different segments, whether that's cold storage or mining or even apartment complexes, of course, and the fairs that are there. And so he has highly been committed. And one of the things that if you have an opportunity to talk to Bill, is that it really helps create a framework to continue to expand an area that he's been passionate about. It also has given different platforms for his team to learn and build as they've had need, but they didn't have the scalability. And so that's the benefit of rebranding the security. And the next group that we're familiar with is actually Chris Calderon. Believe it or not, she was my executive assistant a couple of years ago and then moved to Hawaii. In fact, next week I'm going to be meeting with Chris. She launched in a new state that we had not had any revenue in a little over a year and a half ago. She's now on 2 of the islands and doing well over $1 million in annualized revenue after just launching there 14 months ago. She relocated from Nebraska to Hawaii. And so why? She had never been an owner before, had an aspiration to be an owner, but had the right personality and drive to do it, had been listening to a lot of the prospective owners come through our system and process and realized, wait a minute, if they can do it, I can do it too. And so it was that belief in herself and the support of our network that she moved to Hawaii, and then ultimately has been launching and building her business there in multi-channels, building her culture, and really applying it to the local Hawaiian culture at the same time. So the next profile is Ben Tieford. And so Ben is a multi-state, multi-market owner, and in fact is our largest nationwide by revenue owner. He owns in Orlando, Nashville, Memphis, the Hampton Roads area. He's in Milwaukee, Wisconsin as well, and his markets. And so he continues to build his business based upon his understanding. He was a previous franchise owner in the tax preparation industry for about 15, 16 years, had multiple locations, and then saw that technology was kind of adjusting that marketplace and wanted to lean into a company that was forward thinking, that was at the franchise space. And so even though he had some interest in things around security, he never had experience operating a security business before, but he definitely had franchising experience and business ownership experience. And so it made natural sense for him to pivot into this industry as he saw that it was recession proof, given that he had been the tax industry. Technology will only aid our development and growth. And so that led to his interest in Signal. And then next is Hareese Johnson. In fact, just last week, I was in the DC area working with Hareese, and he is in fact going to officially retire December 20th from Prince George's County Police Department in Maryland. And he has had a couple background. He was in the military and then stepped into law enforcement out of military. In fact, he was from originally Harlem, New York. He had said, and he was looking for police departments. He was in California, he applied in New York, and then he ended up in Prince George's County, relocated down there. So he was not from the area. As he was in the military and police, as he was in police role, he saw the need for security in the marketplace and knew that the police were not able to deliver what the clients needed. And so he it started a security business, and that was alongside of us. And so this year he will do over $5 million. And again, he started, I believe, in 2019, 2020 range, maybe even launched in 21. And so now he's not only the franchise of the month, he's built a phenomenal team. Again, just happened to be there last week. He has a great market. We're seeing that it's in that tri-state area. He's right on the border of DC as well as close to Virginia. And just understanding the local market conditions as a police officer absolutely help him as he builds his business going forward. And kind of the fifth profile are our global security representatives. And so Lee Carter actually had been a security professional in another country, in the UK specifically, and was basically a security provider on freighters that were delivering ships or delivering freight across the markets. He had come to the United States on his daughter's birthday for a trip, realized he wanted to live here. And so he immigrated to the United States through a ownership visa to become a franchise owner. And so again, in his case, a phenomenal owner, continues to build and has a multi-market in Florida. And of course, loves it down there in Florida compared to where he was at in the UK at the time. And so those are kind of the 5 different personas that have come through our franchise concept. And we've just highlighted 5 of the hundreds of owners that we ultimately have. And so part of the appreciation for them is what differentiates Signal compared to the others. And so, ultimately what our primary differentiators are, we recognize that as you're going through the different phases of business, you'll need different support. And so that first phase is really getting that $500,000 in revenue. And all the ones we showed you are past this first phase. But ultimately, you're just getting started. You have no revenue, no clients, really no employees, and ultimately, you're trying to build that business. And within typically the first couple of years, you're able to pass through that phase year. There, sometimes it happens as quickly as 6 months. Some people are buying a bigger business, and so they're stepping into that phase 2 or 3. But really, that stage, you're learning the fundamentals of the business, and that's the goal and objective. And then the next phase is phase two. This is where really you've replaced and exceeded your income expectations, or you've left in association with our margins here. And then you now are adding overhead personnel to help support you in the business. And so you need to evolve as a leader, right? You now don't have the ability to talk to everybody every day like you may have had at phase one, whether it's employees or clients. At phase two, you're working through management team members that are ultimately delivering services locally. Then you hit phase three. And in phase three, that's where now you're between $1 million and $2.5 million. And many franchisees don't achieve this location in most industries. However, here it's very prevalent to pass the $1 million mark, in the security industry being so vast, our approach being different, and then not being tied to a particular location or site. In most industries, a franchisee would be a geographic location with a physical location. In our case, we're going to serve our customers. So many franchisees achieve that $1 million to $2.5 million mark. But now you're working through a series of managers, and you need to really have a consistent cadence of activity, and we help coach you through that. And then the next phase is phase four. That's that $2.5 million to $10 million. This is where you're leading a much broader business, right? This is Ben Tieford's past this, and then this phase is where Bill Katowski and team are going through to get to that phase five. And ultimately now you're leading leaders. And that is also an evolutionary challenge for many, as they may or may not have had that opportunity in other parts of their career. And then after that, you go to phase five, and that's where you're a multi-market owner, very similar to where Ben Tieford is currently. And you have leaders in each market, and you're having a routine schedule of visiting those leaders and working with them going forward. And so those are the five phases. Phase six is that master franchise, where you are more than 50 million and or you're managing a country and have the responsibility of building out our network there. And so then the next piece of that is, okay, now we're going through those phases. Who are the target audiences? And I'm going to walk through these 5 potential target clients. And so in our proprietary software, you will see lots, which is kind of depicted in the shadow behind this visual here. And then the leads are what create value there. If you've been clicking on our site, you can see this. The leads are determined based upon the zip code the particular facility is located. And then we subdivide that in the industry. And the reason we subdivide the industry is really the level of service that we provide consistently in those industries and what they're looking for. And so I'll kind of try to describe these just for a general understanding as you're learning about our industry. But the first is commercial. And so our primary client in that, number one client is Walmart. They are across the US, of course, and we have security services. We do about 2,000 bids for Walmart a year. And ultimately, just like all the others listed here, we have schools, we do events, we have government contracts, all healthcare, all the above, and commercial properties. Largely, we're doing perimeter management. And what does that mean? That means that we are not allowing people access outside of the hours they should be there, and when they are open, making sure the appropriate people are coming and going from that particular location. And so that's commercial properties. You can see there everywhere. We recently started a new client, a nationwide client as well when I was up there with Haris, and it just started May 1st. And that is a, hundreds of properties partnership that we are piloting 12 locations up there in his area across the country. The second category is manufacturing. And so we have clients in food defense, food clients that manufacture, and all sorts of manufacturing clients. And they really need 3 levels of service for us. And so that is perimeter management, load management, and visitor management. And so our software makes sure that no one is coming on site outside of their hours of allowability. And then visitor management is a software that'll make sure we register whomever is on site and when they're attending, so that we can track and trend the traffic that's on those locations. And then load management is in the manufacturing. There's raw materials being dropped off. And so we're making sure those trucks are processed through appropriately on a daily basis, and then ultimately tracking and making sure that's efficient. And obviously our whole solution is there to create efficiency for those manufacturing facilities. The next category is industrial. This is anything that's open air. And so from mining sites to construction locations to any number of things, we make sure that it's largely perimeter management, that people are not coming in after hours. It's usually a dynamic environment where, construction is being completed or they're mining different areas over time. And so we're evolving in that area. Another key area that we're successful in is distribution. This is where the supply chain is covered and things are in transit. So the manufacturing facilities have completed a product, it goes to a cold storage facility, for example, before it's delivered to retail locations. And largely it's load management. They want their trucks to be going to the right particular dock and doing so efficiently. And we have a vast network of opportunities that we're developing there in the distribution network. And then finally, and the starting point is housing. And so the volume of clients are largely around housing. You know, potentially multifamily properties are the largest target. And ultimately, all across the board, we are there to make sure that there's largely perimeter management, right? Just having last week been in the field in the DC area, went to a series of apartment complexes that need security to make sure they're addressing any time that the property needs to have pools closed at this time of year, or parking garages inspected to make sure people are appropriately parking in the right spot, addressing noise complaints as people may want to stay up beyond quiet hours, and of course moving along the vagrants that are otherwise finding places to spend the night. And so those are the types of things we're addressing in our potential clients categorically. And so then how do we approach them? We have developed a signal performance manual, which is a whole holistic book that leads through our training with our online, in the classroom, and in the field training. We have, in fact, people in training this week, 3 brand new franchisees spread throughout the United States, from Florida, California, as well as Kentucky, that are in this week, and then other franchisees that are bringing in their key new employees going through training, as there's about 20 people in the training class today. And we walk through the manual in advance, so they're prepared, but then the curriculum is based upon the manual. And so this happens to be our 6P sales process, of which they're literally learning today. I was in that training class about an hour and a half ago, walking through the procure phase briefly with them. And so we're walking through the process for them to learn and acquire those clients that we otherwise have. And as I mentioned, they start with some online. So if you were to move forward as a potential franchisee, you'd be introduced to these topics online. And then in classroom setting, which we're conducting this week, is indoctrination. And so then basically you're learning about those concepts and doing role playing and practicing, so that the following week they're going to be doing their launches. We have 3 different groups going out to launch next week. And that's in the field, where one of the presenters and people that are responsible for the area of business that you need to develop in are out there in the field working alongside you to build your client segments and get those first contracts as you continue to build going forward. Then after you get that first contract, you need to hire your first employee. And so we have an officer advancement ladder, and you can kind of see that here. Starts with that officer, somebody that has limited experience in security. We're hiring, onboarding them, and they're earning an hourly wage, at which point then at about 90 days, they can move into that advanced officer role. That's where they ultimately are getting promoted for the first time, and they are a mentor. And then after that, they can become a manager, which is the branch supervisor role, where they're overseeing the different officers and advanced officers, leading them on a daily basis. And then you see that little blue circle there. That is where it goes from hourly to overhead. And now you're managing that overhead personnel. That coordinator, you can see it's A, B, C, D, so it's and E, so it's clear for them as they're promoted. That coordinator is overseeing multiple branch supervisors. They're responsible for onboarding them and training them and working with the challenge they have in the local markets as well. And they lead the weekly team meeting. Your director then is overseeing the trends of the organization, and they're really looking at this on a monthly basis as they progress through. Then your executive director is looking at the quarterly goals and objectives on behalf of the franchise owner as the business gets larger. And each of these layers are added at different phases as the business grows. And so then we have this proprietary technology, Edge 2.0. And so it allows for us to have real-time visibility of our officers and all the things that are ultimately going on the particular properties we're serving. Of course, it has communication tools in there, from email and text and signatures, and able to capture contracts in there, all mobilely driven. Of course, there's a PC availability as well, so you can see their schedule. It's clean and neat and consistently being developed. In fact, just yesterday, literally, I was meeting with the development team and working on secondary and tertiary development initiatives as we are continuing to learn and evolve our technology. Then, of course, it gives you an owner's dashboard. And as you can clearly see here, it'll give you relevant information of what you need to do on the left-hand side or take action on. All these are dashboard items, metrics inside of your business that you can otherwise gain insights. And then, of course, on the right-hand side are tasks that are relevant for you and your team to execute on, and then quick access tools for further information that are in the tools and resources, and then information that's being scrolled upon the bottom there to communicate ongoing what you need to know network-wide. And so here's a little bit of the breakdown of the KPIs that we measure, right? We kind of break this down in what we call our soapbox: sales, operations, administration, and promise. And so those are sales KPIs that you want to look at the trend lines, operational performance KPIs that ultimately drive the behaviors of the operational team, administrative, which is your collections and accounts receivable over 90, et cetera. And then ultimately retention metrics. Are you retaining customers, employees, and are they completing the training to make sure they're performing at a key level? And then ultimately next is, where are we going, right? So maybe at this stage you've said, you know what, Reed, you've been walking through this. I know I want to be a business owner. That's why I'm attending this call. I clearly see the security industry is recession proof and resilient in any marketplace. And I know franchising and technology are a key way to do that. I saw the 5 profiles of the individuals you've been walking through, and I can identify with 1 or 2 of them, as my career has been similar to theirs. And then ultimately, I know that the technology platform and the services and support you provide will help me to be successful as a franchise owner. So really, where is this organization going? And so obviously we continue to grow, and you can see here from the humble beginnings of 0 revenue and then 12,000 in the 2008, all the way to over 300 million last year, as we'll continue to grow this year as well, and accelerated growth. And we are just getting started. In fact, I know that many of the relationships we're fostering now will multiply in the years ahead. And so what do we really need? We need more owners to help support that, right? Our average franchisee revenue, as I mentioned, is over $1 million. That's not really consistent. And many franchisors, they're looking at 750 to 500,000 range. Our franchisees are 3 to 4 times that size. And obviously the top quartile are much bigger. They're doing 4 million plus in revenue. And so obviously those are big businesses that you have a nice team and some consistent performance results that you can measure going forward. And we only see that growing and accelerating as we work to achieve $1 billion. And that's where I really foresee us hitting that in 27 and 28, tripling from where we're at now. And as you can see in the rank of 2024, at that 267, we were 14th, 15th largest security company. I think now we're easily in the top 10 and be above. And I would only see that continuing to progress in the years to come, as our objective to be the world's largest security brand. We need to start that here domestically. You can see that our largest competitor, Allied Universal, is doing $12 billion here in the United States. And of that $12 billion, that makes them the 3rd largest employer in the United States. They have 400,000 employees here in the US, and they're only behind Amazon and Walmart. And so that just shows you the scope and scale of the industry. And our objective is to obviously open these locations to get there faster with the appropriate owners and franchise owners. And so where can you get started? That's an obvious question to get started in this organization. And that starts with these lots. And so we have a geographically defined lots in each of the marketplace. And what we'll do is we head to the question and answer is we'll have you pull up potentially a lot marketplace if you're interested. I'll actually stop sharing my screen, and then Paul can share his screen if there's any lots you're interested in. We can navigate with those. But at this point, I'll open it up for any questions. Does anybody have any questions? And you can put that in the chat. You can potentially unmute yourself, and I can address those as we're working through. So if you have any questions, I can answer that as you're evaluating and considering that. We can also pull up the live lots map here to show you kind of geographic areas and what those things mean, as that's a key starting point. Anybody have any questions you'd like me to answer? As Paul's working on pulling up those lots there, kind of the process from here. In fact, I have 3 calls this afternoon. If you are interested, you click on this particular lot, fill out a form if you haven't already. You'll be scheduled with our internal team for calls. Then you will have a direct call with me. And I will talk to you and walk through that as well. And then next, we will kind of invite you to a partner discovery day. We have, I believe, 6 or 8 coming on the 19th of May. That's our next partner discovery day. And then we'll kind of discuss these processes. Then you come and sign for training. Like I mentioned, we have 3 literally here this week for training. And ultimately, then you get launched and you kind of follow the process from there. So Sergio said, I'm living in Washington State at this moment, but want to start the franchise in Orlando. Can I do that? Yes. So ultimately, we'll click on that lot. Paul will navigate to that. You click on the state. It'll highlight the lots. And as you can see what is available, you can click on what is available. That doesn't mean that those are the exclusive ones available. And so Orlando is a little bit gray because our franchise owner, Ben Tieford, owns a lot of that marketplace. But if you're somewhat flexible, you can step into, say, Florida 26 or 23, which is a little bit north, Florida 22, and ultimately start your business there. Additionally, if the right owner comes in with the right opportunities, you could be able to purchase a existing lot. And so as you can see, when Paul's navigating that, it'll show you which zip codes are part of that lot and then what that lot value is. This is important to understand. Unlike most franchise or every franchisor that I'm aware of, we do not have this debt on your credit. So the lot value is $227,000. The payment is largely paid by the revenue you generate. So the payment is not a payment, automated payment like you'd get at a rent or something like that. It is a byproduct of your revenue generated. So we're partnered with you and aligned to grow your revenue so that you can ultimately pay back that note. And then in this case, at the $227,000 lot, once you've paid back that note, just like a house, it's wholly yours. And so again, you can look at some of the lots in the available marketplace. Anybody else have any lots they want us to determine, or Sergio, any questions that I can answer for you specifically about the Florida lot or the process or geography? If you were to come to a PDD, we'd map out a 90-day plan for you. And so it'd be associated with that lot. So whatever lot you're purchasing will show you the particular clients that we currently have there, or lost proposals, meaning that a former franchisee or salesperson bid on that and the clients decided not to move forward. And then also we go into the current leads per the 5 verticals I showed you on the other slide. We'll see where those are at geographically with regard to what you're interested in. A couple of lots on the Eastern Seaboard are already owned. Literally the owners are here today working through the development of their training so they can go launch. I believe it's in lot 27 there, if I'm correct. Other questions? Anybody have any questions that I can answer for you as you're going through this? The lot costs $250, and when I finish paying off that amount, I own the income, right? You actually have the income generated at that time. So whatever profit is derived is to you as well, right? However, the payment, once it's done, you own that outright. I think an important thing to understand too is our territories appreciate each year. So ultimately, if you look at that lot, and we'll just use lot 1 because it's the top of the list there on the left-hand side, there's 309,000 population. So the profit is derived from $1.50 times that population. So you can see that that is the cost with that. And then next year it's going to $1.75. So if the population doesn't change, in Florida it does typically because you get more people moving in, basically. Florida is a growing state. And so what I've watched over the last 17 years, that particular state has gone from, I believe, like 26, 27 million people to 34, 35 million. So those people have dispersed throughout. So the lot value has gone up in 2 ways: the price per person and the number of people in those areas. And so if you bought it for $250 in the Sergio scenario, just as a general rule of thumb, that'll go up about 15% a year in value. So typically April 1st is where you see the value go up to $1.75, at which point then in this particular scenario where there's 309,000 people, your price or value would go up 25 cents. And so roughly another 60,000, 55,000, 60,000, 70,000 in that area. So that's how the value goes up. That does not, you don't have to pay anymore. That's the equity. Think of that like a house. Homes appreciated over the last couple of years, particularly, and the purchase price you bought it at did not change, but the exit value did. And so that is what our structure of our financing and process is. So good questions. Other questions that I can answer for anyone that is participating today on the James says, spoke with your company about Kansas City, Missouri area. How do we acquire financing for the properties? So essentially you fill out your form, you come to PDD, and ultimately there is no need for financing. We in-house finance. Great question. So what does that mean? That means that the purchase price, and we'll just click on any lot here in the Kansas City marketplace. And again, we're zooming out so you can manage a lot of this as well. You click on the state of Kansas, and then we'll click on Kansas City area on the Kansas side. And then you can see that, for example, lot 22 is available. We'll try to do that one since it's a little bit adjacent to that. I know the other lots, 4 and whatnot are there, but you can click on 4, maybe just click on 4. I think it's a greater Topeka area, or 5. And so then your financing here, your valuation of lot 4, for example, is 334,000. You wouldn't need financing. And so essentially I'm carrying that back as the owner, and your payments would come from that. And again, as I mentioned, this is not like a credit card where it shows your outstanding debt. So this would not be on any credit score that you have. It would literally be internal financing. It's collateralized by the value of the territory. That's how I collateralize it. Okay. And so then you would determine the market value. We would determine what revenue is there. And as a result, you will get a assessment on your PDD or shortly thereafter as to what, the valuation is, and ultimately the repayment process, which is landing contracts to pay that back without financing. The financing is again carried back in a collateralized way. Sergio says, how do I compare a lot in Florida to a lot in Washington, for example? If I buy a lot in Washington State and then I move to Florida, can I sell it? Yeah, so you would sell it in the open market, just like a house. We would have other buyers, just like the group that's on this call. They would be interested in that. And then you would list that, sell it, and then relocate to Florida and buy a lot down there. So they're independent lots, just like a house. Similar ownership structure, right? Where you're familiar with that. The equity you build in the lot in Washington could be applied to the Florida lot so that your payment's less, just like a house. So if you sell your house, you have equity, you transition that into a new ownership. That's how that can work. Other questions? And these lots help with a sale value, as you can see. You can see the ones that are owned. For example, this one we're highlighting here in Kansas, that's actually owned by another franchise owner. His name's Mike Lowry. And so he can see his equity build there, and he can see the ownership, and the blue are the available ones. In this area, I know he's interested in selling Topeka because he's concentrating on the Kansas City marketplace specifically, even though it's owned. So those are the components of that as well. And that's the Missouri side of Kansas City, as you're aware, I'm sure. The river splits the states, and so there's two different sides. Other questions? Any other questions I can answer for anybody? All right. So I know this is a big step for many of you to go through that process. I would suggest if you do have an area of interest, click on that particular lot, fill out the form, and then there'll be a series of team members that'll be reaching out to you to follow up with you to discuss the process and obviously learn more about it. And then, of course, we can invite you here. I'll have a call with you. We can invite you here to the home office here at Signal and have a meeting, and then obviously discuss if ownership is right for you at this stage in your life and career. So unless there's any other questions or things that I can directly address, we appreciate your participation today and look forward to engaging you throughout the process as you kind of explore the next step of your career. And we hope to make that as clear and obvious and seamless as possible. So thank you once again for investing your time, and we look forward to working with you as you work your way through this process. Have a wonderful afternoon and rest of your day.